Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Please do subscribe both channels, EEARTS, where we were talking about the scars of the galactic battle that is visible above our heads if we are in a place that doesn't have a lot of bright lights.
Right.
Our real history is so much more interesting than the history that they give us.
It is, but I think the most difficult part is retrieving that history in a form where we can understand it and we can actually comprehend it, which in this world, some parts are easier and some parts are not so easy.
And Evolutionary Energy Arts, where we were talking about the target is not Taiwan with all the focus on Taiwan. The real target is the big switch of the system. And you got to look at this and say, whoa, what are we seeing here? At first, it's like, what are those military aircraft? Is this Ukraine? Well, it says it's Staffordshire in the UK. Somebody else said that's Australia. Anyway, you look at it, what are all those, planes, I believe. I believe those are planes and not rockets. But again, you guys correct me. The one thing I do see is something that's very familiar, which is these wispy clouds. These wispy clouds, which, start as straight lines, end up spreading out, and often they're right there in front of the sun, blocking the DNA changing gnosis information from the sun that should be hitting us. And this is what they want to do, is they want to block out the light, showing their true colors, blocking out the light, supporting the darkness. That is what the powers that be, the power structure on the earth, is all about.
That's what they do. They spend a lot of time trying to make sure we don't figure out the core of what's going on.
But it's just a conspiracy. There's no truth to that, as this Wikipedia says. The final authority. The term chemtrail blends the words chemical and trail, just as contrail blends condensation and trail. And there's no evidence. They say there's no evidence. Man, we've showed so much evidence over the course of so many different videos, so many declassified documents that say it's true. There's no evidence that there's a word of truth anywhere on Wikipedia. That's where there's no evidence.
No, I mean, they're very careful with their words, and they're very chaotic, but that's key for them, is chaotic words. And let's listen to these chaotic words.
7 Nobel laureates in the economy, on the economists, in the economics, I should say. 7 Nobel laureates in the economy, on the economists, in the economics, I should say.
That was a great lead-in that you did there. There you go. Yeah, there's nothing really, as you see, words are literally too hard for JB. Well, let's listen to this one. I mean, sometimes when he gets out words, it's just that I don't think they have the intention he's trying to state. Or does he even know what he's trying to state?
And pass it as soon as possible. I know most families are focused on just putting 3 meals on the table, taking care of their kids and paying their bills. Helping you do that is my job. That's the president's job as well.
Okay, so are you saying that you're not the president? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Helping you do that is my job. That's the president's job as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, we know he's the head puppet anyway. And nobody could seriously think he makes decisions. How could you? So there is something. We just had this conversation with a family member, and it got me thinking about this, and I just wanted to bring this up to point out. This is a list of 10 things which we've talked about. Most of these things, declassified government documents that talk about things that most people may not know. The military has used this weapon called Voice of God technology, or the Voice of God weapon. The military has used this weapon to put words in people's heads. It's called V2K, voice to skull. It's the microwave auditory effect creates click sounds or with speech modulation spoken words. The click sounds or words appear in someone's head without a transceiver. So, they don't have to have a chip, as, Klaus has said, everybody's going to be chipped by 2030. We're going to know what you're thinking and feeling. This technology will work without anybody being chipped. You could use this weapon to put words in the head of anybody on the street, countless people who claim to have been attacked with this device, and that the government's using it for mind control. Mysteriously, the Army had a webpage about this, and it was used on a man called Abu Zubaydah to extract information. He reportedly was tortured by the U.S. for 83 days, didn't give out, but one night he heard Allah talk to him in his head, and it convinced him to cooperate. So yeah, this is real technology. As you can see, number 2 talks about Operation Paperclip, which we talked about a ton. And number 1 about the fact that, the leader of Nazi Germany escaped to Argentina, as well as so many other things. But this type of technology is very, very real. Voice of God, voice to skull devices. There's many other things too. Darpa's sonic projectors. There's even a little layout. This from 1974. Talking about how some of this technology could be used, like long-range acoustic device, remote behavioral influence technology. This is all real. Just as MK Ultra, very, very real. They've been all over trying to control the minds of people. And here we have links, some of which have been removed. And then you find this often on very hot topics. As we see number 2 there, DARPA advisor reveals conscious AI supercomputers used for mind control of targeted individuals. DARPA insider reveals the coming hive mind control grid. This is big. This is big. And of course, we've seen these towers that have sprung up all over the place. Now, one of the things that we're seeing is random acts of chaos everywhere. All sorts of, horrible violence and attacks and just illogical behavior. A lot of people feeling very, very angry and having hard times dealing with it. And there was this horrible massacre that happened in an African country, I want to say Uganda, in which this type of technology was reportedly used. And it wouldn't surprise me at all, I should say. It would not surprise me at all. It's fascinating to look at the similarity of, again, the as above, so below, the human energy field with the energy field of the Earth. That torus shape, same thing as the energy field of the universe itself. And alpha waves in the human brain are between 6 and 8 hertz. The human brain's alpha waves function in this range, and the electrical resonance of the Earth is between 6 and 8 as well. Our entire biological system work on the same frequencies. If we can control that resonated system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of humankind. And again, DARPA is all about, well, again, they always say defense, but it's really not defensive, it's offensive. Defensive military spending? No, it's offensive. When was the last time the U.S. was directly attacked? Well, that may be in store in the future. But meanwhile, the U.S. has been involved in hundreds of wars abroad. It's not defensive, it's offensive technology, and it's not even really about the U.S. And they're all about creating these interfaces in the technology. As we know, everything is vibration. To alter our own personal vibration. Why are they doing this? Well, because the Earth's frequency is raising, our frequency is raising. We would be saying bye-bye to them because their frequency is stuck.
And one of the things that they're very, very good at is understanding exactly how frequency works. And we were just speaking with a family member, and it was bringing me back to when I was learning about biofield tuning and doing the research and reading the books. The person that I learned from, she had a difficult time putting together her research because so many things were taken down due to national security. So they could not have a lot of this information out into the public. So believe me, they know how to manipulate, and they're doing it now.
Well, if they were to speak truthfully, they wouldn't say due to national security. They'd say due to controller security.
Yes, it's true. You're right.
Due to limiting the ability of humans to understand what's really going on around them at any one given time. And singing the universe into being. This is really cool. By changing the vibrational waves, matter begins to form. And this has come from the guides. Cindy's even channeled this in her sleep. By changing the vibrational waves, matter begins to form. And there are many mythologies that suggest this is the process that formed our universe. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound.
Isn't that just beautiful and amazing and fascinating, all wrapped into one? When you think about how things are made and how things are formed, you have light and you have sound, and you put those two things together, and that makes us. So when you're talking about energy work, tuning, frequency, it's all right there for us to be our best. It's all right there for us to be connected to higher self depending on our frequency. And that's going on more than we realize. More than we realize every single day. Light bodies are being activated. And I do think, along with other things, it's the light body activation that could be causing some of this turmoil. But it's not just that activation. They're adding things to our light body activation to make us even more volatile, because they understand what's going on right now. They understand the true evolution of what we're going through right now.
Absolutely. And I bring this up because I see it in everything going on out there. I feel it. And then we are hearing it with the people that we meet with on a regular basis, every week, every 2 weeks, every month. The different family members that we get together with and have sessions with. And so many people are feeling this. They're feeling like, well, I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'll feel angry or irritated. And there's multiple things going on. There always is this natural thing that's happening as well as this synthetic. It's almost comical the way that everything that's going on naturally, there's something else that they've created, a situation where people are getting the symptoms of what would be happening naturally, but it's coming also from a synthetic origin. When we're talking about these technologies, we're talking about the towers all around most of us. We're talking about things like HARP and things like CERN, as well as there's so many satellites in space that we don't even know what they're doing, what type of technology they're beaming back down to Earth. And then we're at a time period where we are working through our own emotional baggage. We're working through different energies that we have not worked through yet. We've just kind of tucked them away. But to go to that next stage in our evolution of the spirit, we need to work through it, and we need to release it, acknowledge, release, and move on. So there you go. I mean, there's the natural and then there's the synthetic at the same time. When you look to some of the ancient cultures, like in Australia, the indigenous people of Australia, again, they believe also the world was sung into creation. And, it's just fascinating. They also say we're returning to the dream time, because when we sleep again, we go into the fourth density, to the astral realm. We're also heading into dream time when we're awake. How many people have noticed that time seems like it's sped up super fast? Not like 1 millisecond, not like 1/1000th of a second, like it really significantly, like 24 hours is now maybe 16.
Oh, I know. And those that we work on a regular basis, it just seems like, wow, we just talked to him yesterday. I mean, it's amazing how fast time is going. So, I mean, if you guys are experiencing that too, it just goes to show that there is a lot more going on in this world than they're letting on, or that they're allowing us to understand. But it's in that understanding that we find true answers, and we find those things that have been hidden from us for so long.
So there's a myth that comes from the Australian Aboriginal people of the Northern Territory, speaks of the story of Barnum Beer, which was a creator being associated with the planet Venus. Now, right there, Venus we associate with love, but Venus has also been associated with Lucifer. And Venus is a feminine energy. It's also associated with the goddess. It's associated with many goddesses throughout history as well. So it's fascinating. Now here, their myth talks of a creator being, again associated with planet Venus, who came from an island of Baralkul in the east, guiding the first humans to Australia, and then flew across the land from east to west, naming and creating animals, plants, and natural features of the land. Flew across. That sounds like somebody with some sort of technology or a light being. Either or, technology or a light being, naming all the different creatures. As we've talked about, and we were alluding to in the last video, the earth is the rebirth of Tiamat. Tiamat is what the earth came out of. Tiamat was unfortunately destroyed in that sense by this epic intergalactic interdimensional battle that's still ongoing to this very day. And remnants of Tiamat makes up that area when we look up into the sky. And thank you, whoever it was that made that comment about is the fact that the Milky Way, when we look into that section that we think we're looking into the heart of the Milky Way, we're actually also first looking at all the debris from Tiamat that's still up there. And it's known as the Great Rift in some cultures. And that's what the guides described it as, a rift, a tear in space-time, a scar. They described it as a scar. Again, we are living in the very body of a being. And this is part of that as above, so below mystery. We are living in the body of a being. We're also living in the mind of a being. And, of course, the most real thing is thoughts. The philosophical scientist group, which included Einstein, Max Planck, and many others that used to get together, kind of a coffee clatch, a group to meet for coffee, tea, maybe some crumpets and other niceties, would just discuss these philosophical thoughts. And these are some of the greatest minds in the 1920s and 30s. And, ultimate conclusion was everything, really, the universe is mind stuff. And thought is as real as anything that there is. So again, our thoughts are powerful. But again, we need to be mindful of how we use them. And, we get a lot. Well, it feels like probably more than it actually is. I mean, it might be 2 comments out of 100 that, you're fear-mongering. But no, we're still trying to bring awareness to the masses while also, helping those that want to go deeper. And so on EEARTS, we tend to go deeper. On Evolutionary, we tend to bring awareness to the masses. We are co-creators, but there's also a consensus reality going on. So, you have the ability to create your own reality, yes. But at the same time, did bad things happen? Did World War I and II happen? Yeah, they did. Even though we know, history is revisionist, I know and spoke to people in my youth that had strong memories of them, actually seen them. And so, I had aunts that were born in the 1890s, late 1880s even, lived to be almost 100 years old, 2 of them. And, they went through all this. They went through the Great Depression. They were little kids in World War I, and then they saw World War II. Yes, those things really did happen. Maybe not exactly as we're told, but again, I did as a kid. I used to like to spend time with my elders and hear their stories. And so they would share about when they were kids. And, it's a beautiful thing. We pass on things orally. These oral traditions all over the globe speak of massive cataclysm. The universality of the flood myths everywhere, every single culture. It's been documented in I think 456 distinct cultures have flood myths of an epic proportion. There's truth to all this. And the truth is actually maybe a little bit more reminiscent of Star Wars than most would really recognize.
Oh yeah, and definitely these movies that we watch, I feel on so many levels are closer to the truth, and that's why we can resonate with them. We can look at this information and say, hey, wow, that feels pretty familiar. And the reason it feels familiar is you're probably feeling it in your DNA at some level. You have gone through this thing before, or you have done this thing before, and it looks and it feels familiar. I've always said I think that all of the true history lies underneath the Vatican, and I really, really believe that in my heart and soul. They have all the information that we would ever need to understand humanity's history.
Absolutely. So when we talk about how certain things in the Bible, for instance, are completely distortion of the controllers, yet there is also a lot of things that are very true, just like that. In the beginning was the Word. That part, yeah, absolutely. Sound. This is part of the creative process. And it also talks about the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. When we channeled Vishnu, who the Vaishnavites in Shaivism believe is the creator of this universe. And, that is the name we got. But again, it was used because it's a name we're familiar with and we feel comfortable with. And there's other names used for this creative creator God, so to speak, creator being. Because again, that particular word has been used, and God has been used to cover so many different beings at different times. So we could say the creator of this universe that's the actual description that they used, basically. And they viewed space more as the waters of space. Space is not an empty vacuum. Space is full of the potential for life. It's full of life force. It's quantum physics. It's basically waiting for us to play with it and to discover and to put our attentions out into the field. Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field, is such a great place for people to start if they have never really gone into this. I would really start with that. Greg Brighteon has one. I forget what he called it. Something with the field again. And then I know David Wilcock did his source field investigations book. But I liked Lynn McTaggart's the best. It was like a one-stop read. It was so easy, so user-friendly for the layperson. It's just candy to the mind. And yet this field is out there, and it's something that just is, it's all there for us. This is our Play-Doh, so to speak. Because we're meant to be like children. You should be born again like a little child, in that everything should have this sense of wonder. This is again from the last channeling. They were speaking about we should be able to approach everything with this sense of awe, joy, and wonder. That's what life is supposed to be about, and how we're supposed to approach it. What can I possibly create? Can I possibly become a great musician? Can I be a great poet? Can I be, a great adventurer? Can I climb this mountain? Can I build this? Can I do whatever? It's just that, what can we do? That awe and wonder at the possibilities of what we can create. Because we're creators ourselves, aspiring creators. And sometime, perhaps, one of us will end up creating universes as well. Because in some ways, we already are creating our own universes.
Mm-hmm. And we can say that we do kind of create our own kingdom. What is a kingdom? It's that is all around you, that you feel you have, a kind of control over, a good control. But we have our pets and our loved ones. We have all of our items. These are all things we have created in this world, in this place, that we consider to be our own. We created it ourselves. And the fact that thoughts are things, they're actual things, goes a really long way. And that's how we can activate that manifesting ability, is through that state of wonder. That's the most important thing. It's like opening a door to creation.
So, yeah, I wanted to share some things with you. They're always giving us these dire forecasts, and yeah, they might be able to trigger WW3. It's within their power to trigger it, unless we wake up the people that are actually going to be fighting it in time. That would be the ideal thing. They talked about the Great Barrier Reef disappearing. It's actually extended. It's at the largest extent in years. So again, a lot of things that they've given us, these dire forecasts, the poles melting, hasn't happened. The reality is Mother Earth will bounce back much faster than they let us know. And again, this ties into the fact that, yeah, the creator of this universe does have a plan. And when Tiamat was destroyed, beings got together and they created a new place for beings to have as a home. And that's what we're in now. So the Earth, there's a lot of things that don't make sense. Why do we find these metallic spheres that are like 2 billion years old inside the Earth? Well, the Earth was taken from a planet that was very, very old, but the Earth itself is not as old. So there again is, the creation and recreation story. There's a new species of jellyfish out there that's pretty stunning. Well, there are a lot of new species that are popping up now. Do we just not know that they were there? Or are they mutations? Because life evolves. There again, we have, are you a creationist or an evolutionist? Well, I don't believe in Darwinian evolution, but I do know evolution's a fact. Everything evolves. Nothing stays the same. Everything is energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but energy is always changing forms. We are always changing. You go to sleep tonight, you're going to wake up a new person. There's going to be brand new cells. Every cell in our body gets replaced at different intervals. Stomach cells within like 3 days. Your entire stomach is replaced on a very fast basis. Of course, your skeleton takes much, much longer. And again, certain organs quicker than other organs. But we're always becoming something anew. Our energy, our frequencies, always changing. We can go from being a very high vibe and then get some really bad news or something shocking happens, and all of a sudden our vibration, our frequency is lowered. People might have all their chakras functioning and operating just fine, and then all of a sudden have a life-threatening scare and everything shuts right down. Everything is always changing. Nothing stays put. That's part of the beauty of this universe that we find ourselves enjoying.
Oh, it is. And I don't know how many of you guys learned in school about the 3 states of matter. They always talk about the 3 states of matter: solid, liquid, gas, but they didn't really mention too much about plasma. And plasma, we are made of plasma. The sun is made of plasma. So when that energy is touching us, you could just imagine how that is going to change form. We're just a really thick, dense form of that. And thought affects us a whole lot. So many things in science, or that people have put out there in books, in black and white, really are not what they seem.
No, and a scientist put out this high definition, high resolution definition photo of what he said was a distant star. It turns out it was chorizo. Yeah, it was sausage, a slice of sausage. And he did it in jest, but you gotta, or he said, I just did that in jest. I didn't mean that to be taken seriously. But this is the type of world that we live in. Now, he might have been doing it just thinking that I could tell people anything and they're going to believe me. And I think that the leadership of this planet does think along those lines. And we were just talking about how China on the other video was, well, there was that Chinese general back in 2005 that made a speech that said that the Americas were first populated by people that came from China, so they can reclaim the Americas for their own. Here we see, now that's people that came over in the Bering Land Bridge, according to modern theory, maybe 12,000 to 15,000 years ago. And here we keep finding older and older bones that show that humans lived in the Americas much, much earlier than thought. In New Mexico, 37,000 years ago. 37,000 years ago. So here they're talking about, yeah, there was that Bering Land Bridge wave that came over maybe 16,000 years ago, or at the oldest, but there's other ones that came over thousands and thousands of years earlier. Now, we get down to Atlantis and the fact that Atlantis was a global society. It was, basically a very advanced society as well. And, it was all over the place. When you look to why do we have all these different cultures in areas that have European features, integrated in, or these invasions, like that whole Aryan invasion theory, which is thought now to not be the case, but it was taught as if it was reality. Again, so many things were given to us as solid facts. You're taught this is the way it is. And then later on, we find out, nope, that was absolutely totally wrong.
Labels, labels, labels. They love giving us the labels, and those are very important for them to keep control of us, because then we're not really thinking for ourselves. Then we're not going within and really finding that deep, true understanding of our own heart. Our intention and what we believe, what we think, what we feel is so critical. And the controllers understand how critical this is. So we are given these belief systems. We are given all of these labels in fear, because if we come out with our own understanding, that's really going to not bode well for them. That's why we like to talk about helping people go within to find their own understanding, because you can see it year after year, time after time. They're constantly rewriting, revisioning for things to fit their narrative.
Yeah, we've talked about all these different cycles, and we've talked about Tartaria, right? And, what's happened there in the past. There's obviously a revisionist history going on. And if you look at the population and population growth, something doesn't make sense in what they're teaching us, because it feels like we go through these complete wipe away of a civilization much more often than what they let on. And yeah, there was a huge event that we could correlate to the Younger Dryas 12,700 years ago or so. There were definitely smaller cataclysms, maybe about 6,000, 6,500 years ago. And yeah, these points do kind of work out when we look at the precession of the equinoxes, 25,900 years. You can kind of put it into 4 pieces. You can kind of cut the pie into 4 segments, so to speak. And then we find that we have at these quarter points basically pretty big cataclysms. And then at the halfway and at the completion points, gigantic cataclysms like the Younger Dryas. And when we think to the yugas, we have 4 yugas again. And the sun, our sun, does revolve around the central sun. And so we are always going through these periods. And then there are smaller periods interspersed within, when we are in these dark ages where the controllers do what they do. which is constantly try to control every aspect of our lives and utilize us for their own benefit.
And that's exactly what they do, and it's in their nature. It's something that they feel driven to do. It's I would even go as far as to say it's a need for them to do that so that they can feel their best. If they're sucking our energy, they're going to be making multiple versions of themselves, and they're going to be charging themselves over and over and over if they're taking from us, and they do that in such a way that we might not understand. But that's, to them, that's not important. They know how to do it, and as long as they can keep us riled up in fear, then they're not going to have to worry. They're not going to have to worry about losing control, because they're always going to have it. Why? Because we can't seem to stop and get a hold of ourselves and find our center, because they have us so busy. They have us like on a wheel. We're just constantly going. How many of you really do have time for that spiritual practice? But I can promise you, if you just put 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, start with that, just quiet meditation, look at a candle, your life is going to start to change for the better.
Absolutely. So we know what's next on the agenda as we look at this system that's in place, talking about consumer credit surging in June, second largest monthly increase ever, which basically means that, people are having a hard time making their ends meet. And many people are maxing out credit as well. This is to be expected in these times. So we know they're going to collapse the economy. We know that they are collapsing the food supply. That's so obvious. Russian Agricultural Ministry warns of risk to global food security in this year. Yes, this is going to a whole new stage. And of course, we have Russia, Ukraine, we have China, Taiwan, and we have Russia and China against the U.S., and then we have, of course, that breaking down into two camps on a global basis. This is part of what they've sown, and it's part of what humanity will reap unless we can mitigate its effects by waking up as many as quickly as possible, and by also recognizing many things, one of which is this is a temporary ride. This is a wild roller coaster ride. Us, the real us, is having this experience in the 3D body. The body's just a vehicle, just like any car you've had, any clothes you've put on. It's something that it's not going to be necessarily the car you drive for the rest of your life. And we don't even know what vehicles they have in store for us in the future. But we do know that we go on, our consciousness goes on. So we see all the manipulations, all the maneuvering. You'll own nothing, you'll be happy. Basically telling us, if you own nothing and you're working just to survive, you're technically a slave. And they're telling us you're going to be happy to be our slaves. And we see people lining up in Italy just looking for handouts here in Milan. The writing is on the wall. We are co-creators. We don't trust their system. We're going to make our own system. That's what we are. We're creators. Mysterious death of 55 cows. This is over in India. This is after they were given a new feed. Oh, okay. This is what we've been talking about too. We can sense and know what they're doing. Yeah, the very food supply itself is completely in danger, and then perhaps even untrustworthy. As we already know, there's been so much tampering with it on a genetic level. Gas rationing has been confirmed by the EU. And of course, we have the ongoing earth changes as you look at these flash floods in Death Valley. Now, this is nothing new, though, because we see signs of that everywhere. And we had a piece of land in Amargosa, which is not far from here. And we found coral. We found clams. We found shells. Mm-hmm. What else was it we found? A sponge on it. And there's no way these things were thousands and thousands of years old. Massive amounts of land were underwater. And it wasn't in the, very, very ancient history. This is stuff that I gotta feel could have been as little as maybe 300-400 years ago. There is also maps that the indigenous people in the area in California and over towards Nevada and Arizona border had made that showed that what we now look at as the Salton Sea was almost like an inland ocean. Things can change rapidly in our planet. And here you see heavy rain continues to hit Japan. 500,000 people had to evacuate there. Over 500 people lost their lives, thousands of homes destroyed, record-breaking rains hitting Pakistan, and there's some flooding in D.C., and one person made the comment they've lived on this street for 8 years, never saw anything like this before. But again, there is so much out there. Natural cycles, yes, there are some natural cycles, and there's an awful lot of technology out there too. And here we see a string of heat waves, lack of rain caused devastating wildfires, imperiled crops in France and much of Europe, most severe ever recorded in our country, so says the French Prime Minister. Over here in Maryland, we have a water spout that sucked up homes. So, it's like nature has gone wild. And we had wondered why in that map, from the Agenda 21 map, did it show Tanzania all of a sudden having a ton of population growth. Maybe this has something to do with it. It says Tanzania may benefit from EU's gas rush in the wake of Europe's self-harming Russia sanctions, as Tanzania could be a potential supplier of natural gas to Europe, and it holds an estimated 17 trillion cubic meters of natural gas reserves. Interesting. Maybe they knew there's certain substances that could cause a boom in that area way back when they first did that map, I think in 2015, I want to say. And we did see Texas wind turbine on fire, and this is one over in the UK. Sign of the times, a message from above. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? The only thing we are sure of is that everything is always changing. That's just the nature of reality. But again, we are co-creators. We have a say in this. We can choose to remove ourselves as much as possible from this system that we are in. We can work with others. We can do whatever we have to do. Be that, hunkering down right where we are, or maybe there's an issue that you have to go to some other spot that you think you'll do better. Maybe, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your cousin, your nephew, best friend, whatever, has been trying to get you for years to come and, do a homestead with them or something like that. Listen to the inner voice, listen to the guidance, because we will be coming together as new tribes and pockets and bringing in this new way of being as we leave the old Kali Yuga, the old dark age behind, and head out of that darkness.
Our time is coming for us to be able to open the door to a new way of understanding and a new way of existing. But the most important thing we need to do is understand our power, understand where does that come from, and don't forget who you are.
Absolutely. So thank all you guys that have been supporting us on Patreon, also those over on Ko-Fi. We couldn't do it without your support. Also, check out Medicinal Foods. Use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount. They have a lot of good stuff to build up your immune system and strengthen you for these times. As always, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.